Did work from home ruin culture at the workplace, or does it still work today?
We entered office and culture belonged to the HR.
Physical space never defined culture for us.
Mental health should be the next new sick leave. What do you all think?
The moment somebody takes advantage of that, the whole conversation today about mental health is going to go back 20, 30 years.
Do not build your policies for your least denominator, because the 10% was going to abuse you. I rather build policies for that top 50-60% who go out of their way.
The best of these.
So build for them.
Two founders walk into with Satish Manchikanti and Ajit Sivram. Execution is not a hustle. When you grow people, you grow everything. Two founders walk into.
Today we have, my friends, a very interesting conversation across generations. In the blue corner we have Gen Z, and in the red corner representing the millennials. And thank you so much for being here today. This conversation about different generations has been one that a lot of people are having. So we wanted to actually have representatives from both generations to have these, because we're living in a workplace today where you've got multiple generations. So understanding the lenses through which everyone sees it in our own ways is something we want to dive into today. Are we ready for this, my friends? So the hot take and the question for the day is, did work from home ruin culture at the workplace, or does it still work today?
I think I can start. Work from home is something we didn't grow up with. Our generation was very proud about taking that ID card and going into office, swiping it, going to the canteen and showing off the huge building and the canteen and the food that we go and grab. The free food always.
Colorful chairs.
I mean, colorful chairs, those bosses roaming around on the floor, and it's like, the boss is here, boss is here. So I think we grew up with that and we loved that space, and we started thinking culture is that, because we entered office and culture belonged to the HR. When they came and did some activity, that's what we assumed culture was. Soon enough, we realized that it's not sustainable. When the commute became 1.5 hours, it just started hitting that we need something much more manageable. And that's when the hybrid model came into picture. We were the ones who vouched for it, and we said we want work from home at least 2 days a week, and give us that, because we are not looking forward to Friday casuals anymore. We are looking forward to pajamas in the house. That's what we were looking forward to. So I think it became a sweet spot for us, and we also started realizing that culture is not about the building or swiping that card or the canteen food. It was how we wanted to develop, how we grew together, we supported each other, gave each other feedback. And I think we realized that we can do it at home while we are cooking our food and also giving affirmation to each other and caring about each other. So I think for our generation, millennials, hybrid is the sweet spot.
I think for Gen Zs, we don't limit ourselves to the location. Culture is a lot about how we show up. And being a generation that literally grew up online, we started making friendships on Discord, building like study groups and debates on Reddit, building communities and making like really close connections over Instagram. A physical space never defined culture for us. It was like the vibe we bring, the way we talk, the way we show up. Even on our text, is there an exclamation point or a full stop? Like that matter. Or are you texting on cap? Whoa. So that's where we derive culture from. So we don't really tag or have anything called office culture. That's not an idea for us. Culture just comes in every space that you exist in, and especially in work, it's very important that we keep carrying on the culture and how authentic we are in the job role that we do as well. So culture in the sense, of course, it being online does take a lot of effort, because when I'm seeing you, it's very easy to pick up from your energy and keep that rhythm going. But online, it does take a little bit of decoding, but I think we're skilled enough to do so. Work from home has actually kind of
diminished work culture.
It's not diminished, but actually it's revealed which are the spaces that truly had culture. Sometimes false harmony also exists. Putting up that false facade, was there actually culture and friendship and that intention already existing? And for a lot of workspaces, if it was already existing, they adapted when COVID hit, when things became online, and they grew stronger. And for the spaces that didn't, they don't exist anymore.
Very interesting. I think you zoom out just talking just for the leaders, like they knew how to create culture with people in the office. And the challenge they're facing is how do I create without? If you ask me, the whole work from home not really is a culture debate, but it's a control debate. Right?
Yeah.
Because when things start slipping, whether it's productivity or outcomes or culture, the impulse for a leader is going to pull everybody in because that's how they know how to fix things. The question we have to think through is, even as we say, hey, we can work from home. If you have a good culture, it shouldn't break. The responsibility all of us have, whichever generation we are, is saying, how do we create places where we can all thrive, whether it's offline or online? And it's not just company's responsibility, it's a responsibility of every person. Culture was outsourced to HR. HR can organize that employee engagement, but it's a very tiny part of culture. Culture is how we do life and work together. And whether we are opting for work from home or hybrid or whatever it is, we have to be the contributors of it and not just the consumers of it. We need to understand that, okay, we are opting for work from home, but as you said, that's going to take extra effort to do it. And also to understand, as much as we say, we are identifying with Gen Zs, of course, as much as we say, hey, we were born and lived online and we have the skill to do it, research also shows the breakdown. It clearly shows that because you tend to be online a lot, you're losing skills, you're losing that human connection. And there's enough research to show that. So understanding how do I then balance that? Where is it that I really need to value that human connection in person? Right? There are certain things you do want to get together for. And when you start compromising those things, you may actually lose that personal connection, especially if you have conflict with me. I would really appreciate if you do that in person. If it's possible, it makes so much difference. So understand the human side of it. I understand the productivity can be from anywhere. So I think it's going to take both ends to understand what we need from each other and say, hey, how do we co-create that? So
Like a good Spotify blend.
yep. Woo! Wow. My goodness.
Nice. Off to a hot start. So when you think of, hey, getting to work, working together, all of that, now when you think of your personal journey, how do you actually build a career in this day and age? It's very different for how millennials see it to Gen Zs, right? Is job hopping the way to go? Or is it, hey, I want to stay the course, grow in this career ladder versus tree in some sense? And are we looking at jobs as long-term marriage or as Tinder ka? Oh, which way do you swipe? Whatever way, whichever way you're swiping, right?
I think, like you mentioned, it's a very good analogy of Tinder and marriage. Our generation, the millennials, we were the people who grew up saying, I'm going to find that first person, I'm going to fall in love with that person, get married to them, and spend the rest of my life with them. And that's exactly what we translate to our work. Because we grew up hearing from our parents that work hard, stay in one place, you have to show resilience, you have to show grit. So even if it got challenging for us, we did not want to give up. It's almost like we are a little bit like Punch the monkey, if you know about it. He was given that toy, and even when it was murky and all dirty, he didn't want to give away that toy. He wanted to hold on to it because it made them feel comfortable. Millennials believe in the deep work a lot. We want to stay in one place and learn more. We want to learn the depth of what is given to us. We are not the generation that grew up with reels. We were the generation that said, no, I don't believe this. I'm going to do my research and then I'm going to find out whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
So work also became that. I wanted to learn skills that Satish has. And for that to happen, it will take me 5 years. It will take me 6 years. So that's what we believe in. And job hopping is definitely not our style.
I'm really interested in what Nandu has to say.
Yeah.
I'm sure we are on the same page.
Each of them to differ. I don't call it job hopping, job frolicking.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
let's.
You really had to explain that to me.
So I think for my generation, self-exploration is really important. And for us, we really want to look at what opportunities we have. And if those opportunities are like swiping left and right, we love it. So we want to kind of look into like different atmospheres, different job roles, so we can take a little chip at every single thing at once and decide what works for us. So time is very important to us in that sense. The opportunities that are coming and how rapidly the world is also changing. So we just want like a nibble at everything and then decide. So I would say that's why we keep moving around and keep switching. So it not only gives us a lot of exposure, a lot of experience, but also the connection that we build with so many different people. From what I learned from you, Ajit, is so different from what I learned from Satish and different individuals. So we want to like consume almost like a Pokemon, like just take in how much ever we can in the time we have. So that explains our frolicking.
We grew up as jack of all trades, master of none, and they got the other part of it, which is sometimes better than just master of one. So they are trying to explore, and we're like,
Nice. Especially in the age of AI, like you
Absolutely.
don't want to get skill trapped. I know one thing, and then what if AI starts doing it? Then what? I think there's a clear message for leaders here. Gone are the days, the old loyalty model where somebody will get a job and stay with you for 30 years and you could depend on it. It's no more an option. Where clearly people are going to look at saying, hey, what is out there, what is better? And as leaders, then the challenge is, how do I make this engaging? How do I continue to give challenges to Nandu where she feels like she's growing and experiencing, learning new things and finding meaning within that, which is another factor. And that becomes a challenge that I have to take on to say, hey, if I want to retain people, I need to ensure that they feel like they're going to continue to learn. But the whole thing of jack of all, master of none, I love the words you've used. Hey, we like to explore, we like to take nibble at everything, we want to experience everything, we want to soak everything in. Those are all very critical words. And because I work with so many Gen Zs, and when I ask them, why are you quitting? A lot of times it's like, hey, I've done this for a year. Because you're really a generation of experiences, right? Not just at work, but everything else in life. Experience is such a big thing for you. What usually my advice is, do not confuse experience with mastery, because you can have lots of experiences but you cannot master anything in life. If anybody is going to pay you big bucks 5 or 10 years down the line, is because you've mastered something, not because you nibbled at everything. So there's power in kind of experiencing different things, but if you do it with more intention, saying I want to find something that I want to get excellent at, right? So move with purpose, but still long enough to master something. That would be my take.
Okay, so take an average day at work. You're feeling sick, you've got fever, or even worse, say you trip and hurt your ankle. You apply for leave. I don't think any boss in the world would say no, or most bosses would say yes. When we break down physically, leave is fine. But say you're burnt out and tired and just mentally had enough, you need a few days off. That I'm not sure whether it exists today, and it's maybe a new thing today. So my hot take is mental health should be the next new sick leave. What do y'all think?
Especially for me and a lot of my peers and my close friends in my circle, a lot of us have seen like previous generations. Our parents, our uncles, our cousins keep pushing and pushing, ignored their mental health.
Absolutely.
And over the course of time, it's really affected their relationships with their family, their friends, their outlook on life itself. When it comes to us, or me particularly, I feel that mental health is really important and conversations around it at a workspace should be considered. And when I go to my boss, I should be or should have the ability to say, hey, I'm not doing so great today. I'm maybe working at a 60% capacity, or I'm affected by certain thoughts. Of course, it doesn't have to be mentioned, but just putting that across, being transparent, being vocal also helps build that relationship with your boss. And also humanizes us. We're not robots where we have feelings, because the work that we do at the end of the day should give some kind of joy, at least, or maybe that paycheck should feel good when it comes into your hand and not like you're holding that and just bawling your eyes out. So definitely
Could be because of the amount, but that's a different thing.
that would be fabulous. So seeing the way people are functioning, it's really important for us to expose people to honestly give that opening and opportunity to say, hey, let's have these conversations and let's see what we can do about it. That's really important. And that's the direction. Of course, we haven't perfected it, but I think we're taking a step towards that and introducing that in the workspace.
I definitely agree with mental health being a very important conversation, not just at work, but just in life. I'm someone who did masters in psychology, so I better say that. The problem here becomes making it a part of the fabric, an existing system where you're already given 12 days a year or 24 days a year, whatever the format is, leaves for your mental health, your physical health, and your weekends. Let's not forget the weekends. We are doing 5 days a week work, and you have your weekends and 24 leaves, plus all your other paid leaves, unpaid leaves. So there is a system set up for you to cater to yourself and your self improvement. Take care of yourself, go out, whatever it takes. Making that a part of, hey, I'll have 20 mental health leaves in a year or 5 mental health leaves in a year is extremely complicated. There's so many nuances to it that it's going to be very difficult for us to create a system and keep it real and honest. The other side of it is taking advantage of it. We are such a large population for us to make that a fabric and saying, okay, you can take it. The moment somebody takes advantage of that, the whole conversation today about mental health is going to go back 20, 30 years because now it's going to be, I told you, people are going to take advantage of it. Our parents definitely told you, get up in the morning and do yoga. Why are you taking mental health leaves? So I don't think it should be a leave, but there should be policies in every organization to talk about mental health. Give them free therapy if required. Give them insurance policies that covers mental health in your life, but definitely not my team coming to me every month. If I have 10 people in my team and 5 of them come every month and say, I need a mental health leave, I'm not sure.
You need
what-
mental health.
I'll need mental health leave for the whole year. That's what I think. But definitely it is an important conversation and we should have those conversations.
Lots to learn there. First of all, I would really want to affirm Gen Zs for pushing the envelope because you're doing it for all of us.
Absolutely.
Because when you normalize it, you're not just doing it for yourself, you're giving other people permission to say, hey, this is normal, we all need a break. The worrisome part is, hey, people will abuse if we have. But one thing that Ajit and I, when we talk to CEOs, one thing we constantly tell them is, do not build your policies for your least denominator because the 10% was going to abuse you. I rather build policies for that top 50-60% who go out of their way.
The best of these.
So build for them. Those 10% doesn't really matter. They're going to leave sooner or later. So you want to build policies for the ones who are really giving their best. And they should be celebrated. They should be accommodated. They should have that space to say, hey, maybe the 12 days, 14 days, 24 days, whatever it is, I will use it the way I want, right? Now, I know that's a very broad stroke and every company can have their own way of doing it. But just talking in terms of the burnout, the high risk is when we look at it as an individual failure. Because especially if you're seeing it as a repeated occurrence in the team, it's a system failure. So what you want to do is that you don't just, I know today everybody says it's okay not to be okay, but don't just say that. You build boundaries, you create permission, you create practical spaces to be able to do that. There needs to be a place for dialogue, and then you say space for, hey, actually to, even if they're taking small steps, to live that statement. So if I'm staying it, I should also give space for that to happen. One thing I do want to share to the millennials and to Gen Zs is, when we think about this whole, hey, there are days when I'm not 100%, as you usually say. If I'm at 40%, 30%, I should be able to take a break, which is very true. So the way I look at it is like this. All of us have good days. Good days are when I feel like I can change the world single-handedly. And then we have bad days where I can't get out of bed. And on bad days, it's okay not to be okay. But what we have to recognize is that these good days and bad days are few actually in our lives. That's 10%. The other 80% are average days. We're not actually feeling 100%. You're feeling 80, 70%. And what matters is when I'm not 100%, when I'm the 70, 80%, do I have the resilience to and discipline to show up with 100%? And that muscle needs to be built. And if I'm not doing that, then the whole I need mental health leave goes out of equation. But if I'm able to do that, I'm able to consistently say, hey, on average days, I'm going to thrive to be my best self. Then most managers would be happy to give us break. And you all manage people. So because we want our best performers to actually stay best performers. We don't want them to be burned out. So good design for the companies. And then for us to say, hey, how do we turn ordinary days into good
Mm.
days, and that good balance is what
Mm.
I guess we will need.
Nice. Talking about balance, my friends. I was talking to Claude the other day, which itself is a separate topic to go into. And Claude has asked me a lot of questions about my worldview, about how I see life, and I talked about being a recovering workaholic or just a
Talk to your wife
workaholic.
also sometimes.
Then Claude was telling me to go talk to my wife, but actually Claude asked me a very simple question. He says, "Hey, you are telling me your priority is Tanya and the kids, but you're also telling me that your reality is that you spend a lot more time at work, worrying about work, stressed about work, and aren't able to give the best of your life to Tanya and the kids. And that tension is there. So let's talk about that tension, not for me, but for y'all. Like work-life balance. How do you hold those two in tension? I mean, where does work sit in life? How do those two play for both of y'all?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
What work-life balance?
no work-life balance.
What's that word?
Denial.
Never heard it.
Yeah.
For me, especially, balance is a word that only looks good in a dictionary. It doesn't exist.
Put on your t-shirt.
I believe it's definitely like a social construct, something that's made up to just keep wanting us to push and almost achieve like this lucid dream or make something up in our head that doesn't exist.
Mm.
That word sometimes only reminds people of the negative that they're not able to achieve. So that's why I want to like flip the narrative, and especially for Gen Zs and my peers and myself, we want to design life. We want to take it in our hands and say, hey, what is my end goal? What is my own reality or dream look like? And work towards that. So we don't see work different from life itself. Like work is embedded in our life, and it's something that we want to use to, of course, grow like soft skills, gain experiences, kind of network, and just become the best version of ourselves. That's why we have like self-care, protect your peace, and keep moving forward to the reality of our own. So for everyone it's different. That balance doesn't exist. For someone, for one of my friends, it could be like hustling 2 a.m. in the morning because they have a startup and they have dreams to achieve.
Yeah.
For another person, it could be that, hey, I just want to finish my job, clock out at 6 p.m., take my family out, have a great time with them. And there's so many different versions and combinations of that.
So more work-life design than work-life.
Work-life design, yes.
Love it.
Jeff Bezos will be proud of you.
Thank you.
He has no balance. But anyway, let's not talk about it. Sorry, Jeff.
No, I think I resonate a lot with what Nandita has said. And for me, work-life balance was not something that was a philosophy,
Hmm.
but it was a coping mechanism that we had to develop because we couldn't find it. It's like we looked for it real hard and we just couldn't find it. And then we came into this realization and just agreeing with this that there is nothing called work-life balance. Like we all mentioned, it's work-life harmony. And we also started believing that your life is always going to be it's not going to be a straight line. So there'll be months where you're really working hard and putting more than 10 hours, 12 hours a day into work. And then there is another month where you're pretty free and you want to take that Switzerland trip. You want to go to,
You went to
so you're, it's the
Monastery.
dream. It's the dream. I haven't been there. It's a dream.
Uh,
So that's what millennials and especially me, I believe in, is that work hard when you need to
Yeah.
and then take that break. There's no way that you'll be able to figure that out on a weekly basis or my 6 p.m. I'm going to log out every day and that's a goal. It's unrealistic. And so just find your sweet spot.
nice.
Like what you said, hey, should we even be selling work-life balance? It's a promise that most often doesn't get delivered. We should be realistic about it because the challenge is this: you're living in capitalism, and capitalistic work space thrives on competition. There is somebody who is willing to work faster, harder, smarter, give it to you for cheaper. So you're stuck in this space where, and I'm talking about companies, where you're pushed to produce better, faster, in less. And if you say, no, we are not going to be that kind of company, then you're going to go extinct. And that's what capitalism is all about. So that reality stays. And it's very important for us to then wrestle with saying, okay, how do we create this harmony, or how do we create these seasons? And obviously, this is something, it's a touchy topic for leaders, something we've thought about very deeply, how to make it real without claiming that, hey, we can give you work-life balance. And the metaphor I usually think about, and I thought about it while I was actually driving on Mysore highway, is companies need to create that 3-lane highway where sometimes you're going at a very high speed But if you want to slow down, you can change lanes. Because as you said, you want to have that seasons where you want to go very fast and seasons where you want to slow down. When I'm creating a workspace, I should design it where people can slow down and speed up, are able to build that harmony you're talking about. Now, the challenge is this: big companies can do that. It is well within their power to be able to create the 3 lane and gives people that space. The challenge is for smaller ones, especially startups, because startups, you got that 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to really hit the ground running and take off. If you don't take off, you perish. As we work for an X company, we have to make those choices very wisely. You can't join a startup which is still looking for funding and then say, I'm going to have work-life balance. Because the things you've mentioned is a very personal choice. It's a life design, as you talked about. And we all should make those choices very wisely as individuals and as companies. We should try and create those 3 lanes that people can speed up and slow down. Yeah.
Last one, and maybe this is the fairly easy one for all 4 of us who work in the social space. We've got deep understanding of it. Gandhiji once may or may not have said, "Be the change you want to see in the world today." We actually don't know whether he said it, but internet has attributed it to him. So let's say he said it. I think the question is, when you all look at being socially active, having a voice, what does being the change mean to your generations? Each generation has expressed it in a different way, though I feel the intent has been very strong. What does being the change, social action, getting involved with things look like for your generation?
Interesting. Takes me back to the days when I was small and every birthday was in Cheshire Homes, because convent student, every birthday is about going back and distributing sweets, cutting cake with them. And it always felt really nice. It always felt like that was the best part of the day. But I didn't have the vocabulary to define it. I didn't know what that feeling was. I didn't know that that was a change inside about serving people, a shift inside that made me feel like, wow, I like doing this. I like caring about people. I like caring about my environment and changing how things are in the world. So we didn't have that vocabulary. So it was all about, you got the money, you got to give back. It was not explained to us. It was set, it was a norm that if you earn more or if you don't, you got to give back in some form or the other. So I think our generation is sandwiched between that thought process and now today, where we say if we don't change, we are not going to be able to change the world around us. We realize that change starts within. Charity begins at home. Change starts within. These are things that we are translating into reality today. This generation and also me, I'm shifting how I look at be the change as a line where the only control that I have is of my action and how I find purpose in what I do, in serving people or not serving people or just giving money to people. That's why philanthropy, social enterprise, these are things that have become the norm today. All my friends want to donate, all my friends want to do the work, but they sometimes don't get the opportunity, time, whatever. But we've all realized that it is we who need to change first and then think about the world, because we make the world. And
Nice.
Very true.
Gandhi would be proud of you.
Yeah.
Beautiful said by Anu. And something that I keep coming back to is growing up, we faced a lot of limitations. And every time we asked why, the elders used to say, oh, society said this is how society is built, this is how we need to function. And for Gen Zs especially, we love to ask questions, we love to pick your brain, and
Right. Yeah.
we do not want to be bystanders. So the millennials gave us that opening and really strong foundation to enter this space, and that helped us take a step forward to really questioning the system itself. Where are the gaps existing? Why do they already exist in the first place? How can we as an individual do better, and as a community itself come to do better? Because of course, by one person, change doesn't happen overnight. I need to take a step forward, then bring in my close friends, then their close friends, and just build that beautiful environment. And that's where change starts shooting and roller coasting and becomes that amazing snowball effect in the most positive way ever. And for Gen Zs, we're also very aware of the privilege that we have. Being in this time and space where we have such amazing technology at our fingertips, resources at abundance, there's no excuse for saying, oh, I can't do that. it's a choice at this point. It's a personal choice. If you want, you can. If you don't want, that's okay. But you can't come up with excuses anymore. So I think that's where we really take it in our hands to say, hey, we want to make our life better. We want to make our community's life better. And at the end of the day, leave a beautiful legacy for what's coming forward. Also, change these systems to make it more sustainable. A lot of giving back isn't a sacrifice for Gen Z. We're willing to put in that hard work, go down in different sectors. It could be like volunteering with children in an education sector, or animals, or caring about the environment. And there's so much out there to explore.
I love what both of you shared. When you think about our parents, they probably lived in a survival mode where the life was about roti, kapra, and makan. But millennials, for you, you had that margin. You didn't have to constantly think about yourself. So you felt enabled to be the change. And now as Gen Zs, you've seen the power of that, and you don't just feel enabled, you feel empowered to saying, here, what problems can I solve? And I saw here's so much of that in what you shared. And I love what you said. Hey, we have the technology at our fingertips. They say that you're more powerful than the most powerful person in the world, which is the US president 30 years ago. So you have more technology and media at your fingertips than,
More knowledge at your fingertips.
and more knowledge with AI now, compared to the US president 25 years ago. And what you do with it really is the challenge. And personally, one of our greater privileges is we get to work with you guys, with millennials and Gen Zs, and we get to learn. Thank you for pushing. And everything we spoke about, you ask the tough questions and you also find answers to it. That's the privilege we have of working with you all and to learn and to co-create.
Yes. Nice. Thank you, guys. One thing is, a lot of times this generational thing gets hyped up, and rather than seeing it as a versus, I love what one of you all mentioned. It's about building on the previous generation. Every generation builds on the previous. The challenge is sometimes not every generation looks at the next one and goes, oh, these spoiled brats. I was doing some research. I found this letter from a mother about her teenage son, like saying the exact same thing. This child is spoiled. This child is all of this. And you will now say this about Gen Alpha, right?
She's already coming.
Same.
Already see.
Yeah. The focus always for us should be, hey, what binds us together? Because we will always be led by purpose. We'll always be led by connection in community is what brings us together. I think that's what matters. It expresses itself with little flavors in different generations. So thank you all. Loved having you both on the show.
Thank you so much. This is really fun, and I hope we've not said anything that should.
You definitely.
Me definitely.
Are you so excited tomorrow? Okay, in good fashion,
Yeah.
Satish
Tell
wants
us.
to give us a small mini applause.
Oh, yeah. Mini applause.
And to the camera, what do we say? on
That's
this?
so Gen X.
Tell him.
It was told to do with one hand, and Satish went all out and
We love it.
living up to your Gen.
You always double down. Don't be like, yeah.
I have a fun little game for us. So we want to see how well you have clocked in to the Gen Z.
What's clocked in, first of all? Explain that.
When I come into work.
Attention.
Yeah.
Swipe the card.
That's when Anu is swiping her card.
The imaginary card.
Biometric not working.
So how much have been paying attention to the Gen Z lingo? So I'm going to ask you
God help
a few common lingos and you have to guess what it means. Up for it?
Bond.
But
break.
yeah, I do it.
It's are you all ready to slay?
Let's go. The first one is it's giving.
It's giving, Thanksgiving Day. What are you talking about?
So Thursday when I ask for money. Yeah.
No.
I just know the action.
It's giving.
No, this is not. Oh,
Yeah, it's more young.
It's giving too much. You're talking too much.
The statement is right,
Yeah.
but not the answer.
It's giving too much.
So it's the energy that you're giving towards that particular like situation. Like it's giving desperate.
Oh, so it
It
could
could
be
be-
positive.
First of all,
Or
that's
negative.
not-
Or negative.
First of all, that's not a full sentence. It's giving desperate. It's giving desperate what?
That's it. Full
Okay.
stop. Yeah.
First of all, it's she or they. What is it's giving?
Yeah.
Your pick.
Oh,
That individual.
That's a whole different conversation. Okay, next question.
No cap.
Hey, this one I knew before.
Come on.
No cap. They're not really?
No,
No. Oh, real. I mean,
no
like,
limit. You do whatever you want.
no,
No
no.
cap.
Yeah.
that's what you wanted, Sandeep.
When you ask for salary hike, that's what your manager should tell you. No cap. Yeah.
Wait,
Oh, no, but it
Satish,
actually means cut the shit out and like speak
No-
like no BS.
No crap.
No crap. That's what it actually means, but they can't say crap. So they say cap.
I think he's just making up.
When you're 13 and a half, what else are you going to say?
Oh God.
sorry. Stopping age jokes. Huh?
It means no lie.
No lie. That's what I
Am I
said.
like-
No. No rapi. Okay.
No BS then, basically.
Yeah, no.
No BS.
Crap.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
Ah,
No cap. I think
stunning. I
maybe
got
a new-
2 out of 2. Wrong.
Sure. I'll give it to
Two
you.
or two wrong, I said.
It's like wannabe Gen Z scores.
I know.
Okay, next one is cooking. This is your favorite touch.
It's doing well. It's cooking. Oh, you're cooking.
Yeah.
My God, you
Well,
knew it?
Yeah.
What's the negative version?
You're cooked.
Then Alpha uses it.
You're cooked. Yeah. Half my life, my daughters are either telling me I'm cooking or I'm cooked. So I don't know what I'm doing.
And I've really overcooked, but that's a different
Oh.
altogether.
All I know is I hate cooking. So
Dad joke. Yeah.
God. Nice. Congrats, you got this one.
Yes. 1 out of
Okay.
3.
Next one is W.
Huh?
W.
Whatever.
no,
Winner, chicken winner. So lame that is.
So we're over like so many letters. Why are there so many letters? So either we do W, which is win. If your friend tells they got like a job offer or they got concert tickets or something, you're like W. That's great.
Really?
Yeah. Or like if
Our generation only did loser. Well, we didn't.
we're not so negative.
Yeah, I know.
Awesome. Next one, I think you know Slay. Very easy.
I slay every day, so yeah.
yeah, both of y'all slay every single day.
That's what you get during appraisals. He's in a good rating. So butter up the bosses.
By telling y'all that you're slay.
Don't slay my rating. Na. My rating also should slay. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Roman Empire.
My goodness.
At his
In the history lesson.
Yeah, please explain.
Okay, so Roman Empire means it like a subject lives in your head like rent free, or that was like my Roman Empire that like it's constantly like running in your head.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm still lost, but
Yeah.
But he used to call it, hey, you got a tape playing over and over again, but you all don't know what a cassette is. So
I
so
know.
different. Joking, yes. I have to take pot shots at young people. What
I love that.
Last one. Okay, it and left no crumbs.
is it
Oh, that
together?
Slayed, right? Again.
Yeah, I'm just testing.
What is left no crumbs? I did it like 100%.
So good.
Like I cleaned the table so well, I left no crumbs.
Exactly.
Yeah? Is that it?
Yeah.
Wow. Something that actually made
Looks
sense.
good.
Yeah.
Finally, compared to 6, 7. Like, what on earth? Like,
I can
Good
successfly you've
kid.
been educated.
thank you.
So go out and make me proud.
Just it.
I clocked
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
And tomorrow, all your messages should be in Gen Z lingos. Otherwise, I'm not replying.
I will slay, don't worry. I will eat and leave no crumb.